Hello friends, this is Sharon from Mad Paper Crush. Welcome back to my channel. I hope that you are safe and well where you are. Today I'm going to be going through how I made this Easter journal from the Easter freebie that I created for you guys. So we're going to be using the ephemera from the kit, plus just some hopefully supplies that you have around your house and things that you can use to make this too. So I didn't want to have this go into two parts because, being at home, I didn't realize we were so close to Easter. So I wanted to sort of do the down and dirty version of getting this completed so that if you want to do some journaling in April about the crazy things that are going on, or just to get your thoughts out on paper, I wanted to have this ready for you. So the video is a little bit long already, but I'm hoping that it will inspire you to make something yourself so that you can start writing some things down. And if you are inspired to use the freebie that I created for you guys, I will link that below, and I hope that you will join me and make this nice Easter journal for us to put our thoughts in. Let's go. Together. And then I'm using the Easter kit, my Easter freebie. I will link this down below if you would like to go get the Easter freebie if you don't have it already. But it has 2 pages of ephemera, so I'm going to be using a bunch of these for different things, pockets and tucks and tags and whatever. I'm going to be doing a lot with this in there as well. And then I also printed, sorry about that, I also printed both sheets on one piece of paper, so they're a lot smaller on this piece of paper that I could use for just bits of ephemera or things throughout as well. So we'll be doing a lot with these as we go as well. I already started putting my signatures together, so I'll just kind of show you what I have and what my idea is. So once again, I wanted this to be just a simple journal that I could start using as quickly as I could, because I'm really feeling like I want to start writing some stuff down about this crazy time that we're in. So what I did with the Easter freebie that I have is I printed it out. Each one, I think each of the journal pages and the collage pages, I printed out twice so that I will have 4 of those pages in my signatures. So I have the collage page on one side and then a plain paper from the kit on the other side. And these, I've already started to cut down the tops because they had a white border and I just wanted to start cutting that off a little bit. And then for the other pages, I just picked I had some cream copy paper that I started adding some inks to. So I just was splattering some different inks that I had, using like a paper towel to kind of stamp some inks on here, just so they weren't completely plain. So I will probably show you what I'm talking about because I need to do these pages as well. So I also picked out a couple of just plain scrapbook pages that I thought the colors matched, what I was going to be doing in this journal. So I have a couple more copy papers. I have another scrapbook page here that's a little bit smaller that I'm using. So each one of these signatures, oh, and here's the other page from the kit. So I have the collage page on one side and then the other plain paper that was lined on this side. So so those are the pages that I have in each signature. So they look a little bit different, but they're basically the same, and they're 8 pages. So I have 8 pages of things inside of each one of these. And I just changed up the different papers that I used, but I still had the copy papers and different things in here. Here's a different scrapbook paper that I have in there as well. So I think maybe the first thing that I'll do is I will just pull out those plain scrapbook papers that I have. So I think there was 2 in each one. And then we'll just go through and I'll do a little bit of stenciling or splattering or something, just to kind of give you an idea of what I was doing there. Okay, I pulled out a couple of things to decorate these white pages with. And so first I just have a couple of stencils. I have some letter stencils and these flower stencils from Tim Holtz that I pulled out. I also pulled out this, this is just a piece of cardstock that I had used on my silhouette to cut out some butterflies, and you can see it left a great image here, and so I just kept this around to use as a stencil. And then also I have this is a liquid acrylic, and then I have some alcohol inks here. So I have like a bluish color and a pinkish color, mulberry color, wild plum. And then this one is, you know, just a green. So I was just picking out colors that I thought would be close to what I was using. And then also I'm going to use my Wild Honey Distress ink for my stenciling. So I'm just going to put that on here and we'll use that across them. And I just wanted to mention too, this one paper that looked like it was a small paper in the signature, I actually had folded it over because I thought I would just make this a kind of a flip or whatever. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to throw this down and just do some stenciling with this. Whoa, if I can hold everything down. And we'll put in some flowers. And I don't care that this is, you know, not taking up everything. I just want, you know, something in here so it's not totally white. There is a lot of white even in the kit, so I'm not real concerned about, you know, how much is in there, but I just don't want it to be plain. So I like the way that looks. Maybe I'll add a little bit more of that down here. And then I'll put some of the letters up here. And I'm just going to do this across all of them. So now all I'm going to do is I'm just going to do some splattering. So let me find my splattering brush. And then I'm going to use my paint tray here. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to just water this down just a teeny little bit so I don't have to use so much. So I'm just going to put a teeny little bit inside of here. Just a couple drops. And then I'm going to put some water on it. And I'm going to do that off the camera so I don't spray my papers. But all that does is dilutes it a little bit so that I can splatter. So you can see it's very runny here. So then I'm just going to take my paintbrush and put it in there and then just start doing some little splattering around. And make sure you don't have anything close by that you don't want to get splattered, because it will splatter everything, and these alcohol inks stain. Okay, and just do as much as you like, and then I'm just going to rinse it out, and I'm going to do the other colors as well throughout. Now for my acrylic paint, which is already pretty liquid, I am still going to do the same thing. So I'm just going to pick a different place in my paint tray here. I'm just going to, whoops, you got to open it all the way for that to work. Whoa. I'm just going to put a little bit in here, and then I'm going to dilute it with my water and do the same thing. And then we'll let these dry. Okay, so I'm going to start with this manila folder for my cover, just to give it a little bit of weight. I'm also going to be using some additional cardstock and some fabric on the outside. So this one is just, you know, the traditional cream color, but I like the way that it, you know, kind of matches what I've already done for my pages. So I am going to be covering it, but if anything sticks out, then I don't really need to worry about it. So I need to cut this down to size. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut my height. So these are about 8.5 inches. Some are a little bit less. So I'm going to cut my cover for 8.5 inches. Now I'm keeping it double-sided right here, and I'm just going to cut through at 8.5 inches from top to bottom here. So this is how tall it's going to be. And then I'm going to cut my width. Now, what I want to do for this is I'm going to cut it open, because right now there are some built-in score lines that I'm going to be using for my spine, but I'm going to add one more score line. So I want my spine to be 1 inch, and this is only 3/4 of an inch. So what I need to do is I need to cut my width from this last score line, whatever the width I want it to be, plus 1/4 of an inch, so I can put that score line in. So I'm going to be cutting this at 5 3/4 inches on this side so that I can put my extra score line in. And then on this side, I'm just going to cut at 5.5 inches because I have that end score line already there. So let's go ahead and do that first. So what I'm going to do is this is my end score line for this side. So I'm going to cut it at 5.5. So I'm just going to put that score line at 5.5 inches and cut that one down. And then for this side, I'm going to use that score line. Now you could put the score line in first if you wanted to. I just figured since I had my cutter out, I'm going to do the cuts first. So I'm going to put this one at 5 3/4 inches and then cut that one down so that I can put my extra score in there for my spine. So now I'm going to get my scoreboard out, and I like to use this score tool here, and I'm going to score it on the same side as the other ones. And so I'm just going to line that up on one of the lines, the one that's already there on one of the lines, and then I'm going to come out 1/4 of an inch and make one more score line there. So now I have a 1 inch wide spine, and I'm going to go ahead and fold that over so that now these are looking the same. So when I have I don't have everything together, but when I have my 2 signatures, they should fit in there nicely, plus give me a little extra room to do some bulking up of that thing, putting in some pockets and different ephemera and things like that. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go around and distress the edges of everything. Like I said, I do like the way this matches the papers and things that I already have, but as I've been creating some ephemera, I've been using this antique linen distress ink as my distress. So it's very light anyway, but it does have, you know, kind of a vintage feel to it, and I would like to keep that sort of throughout. So I'm just going to do all around the edge, and then I'm also going to do kind of in the spine area just in case we don't get that covered up. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do now. Okay. Now I'm going to do a little bit of work on the inside before we cover the outside, because I want to do some stitching on the inside that I don't necessarily want to come through on the outside, if that makes any sense. So what I've done is I've picked out a couple of pieces of paper. These are double-sided cardstock that I'm going to use for the inside, front, and back so that I can create pockets and things like that to, you know, put some of my ephemera in, or, you know, to put journaling cards or tags and things like that in. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to cut one piece of each of these at the same size as my inside here. So I know that it's 8.5 tall by 5.5 wide. So I am going to cut it just a teeny bit smaller so that I know it'll sit on the inside of this just perfectly. So 8.5 by 5.5, but I'm going to come in maybe 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch on both measurements to do these cuts so that it'll fit in there. So let me just show you what I'm talking about. So I'm going to do my first one. I have 5.5 here. I'm going to come in just a little bit. I don't know. We'll do almost 1/4 of an inch, not quite. So about 3/16 of an inch, if that makes any sense on why I'm doing that. I don't know. Okay, and then I want to do my 8.5 cut. And same thing, I'm just going to come in about 3/16 of an inch. So you can see that it will sit in here, but have just a teeny bit of a border all the way around. And I'm going to do the same thing with my, my other piece of cardstock. Now you could have them matching, but because I want to use them for pockets and things like that, I'm going to use 2 pieces. Now they are matching, they're from the same stack, but certainly you don't have to do that if you don't want to. Okay, let me move these extra pieces that I could use for lots of different things out for a second. And actually, before I put my cutter away, I am also just going to make 1 piece of cardstock here in the middle to sort of be a reinforcement for my spine. So I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to mark it. So I'm pretty sure, I mean, when I look at this on my measurement, it is 1 inch here. So I can go a little bit less than 1 inch. And this one, I probably won't go down 3/16. I may just go down 1/8 of an inch on the width. And then the same thing for the height. I am going to go in 3/16 of an inch. So let me do the 8 cut first. So this will be 8.5 minus 3/16 gives me my height. And then my width, I want to be 7/8 of an inch. And I'm always bad at doing these small cuts. Let's see if I did how I did. Yes. Very nice. So that's what's going to go in the middle just to reinforce my spine just a bit. And then I am going to use these somehow in some configuration here. So, and I loved the other sides of these to use for the different pockets and things that I think I'm planning to do. So I just need to decide where I want them. Okay, so on the front, I was thinking I would just do a long side pocket. So you could slide things in the side. So I'm going to decide which one I might like for that. And maybe even if I use this butterfly, that might be really nice there. So I think I'm going to make that one. So I'm going to cut this piece at about, what's that? 1, 2, about 3 inches wide by my 8.5 minus 3/16 inch tall. So let's go ahead and do that one. So let's do the 3 inches first. And then I'll do my 8.5 minus 3/16 tall. So this should match the size of that for there. Okay, and then for this side, I was thinking I would do just a couple of different size pockets that kind of stack. So maybe 3 different pockets. And since, I mean, it doesn't matter which ones I've used, I guess, but this one's really not wide enough anymore. Let me see. Actually, this looks like it might just be, oh, because this is from the top of that. This might be perfect. So what I could do here, let's see. I want to do a small piece of this pattern, so I can do that one sideways. So let me cut this one down. I'll show you what I'm going to do. So I'm going to cut this one down for the width. So that's my 5.5 minus 3/16. And then I'm going to cut this one as my lowest pocket. Actually, no, I think I want this to be my second. Actually, it doesn't matter. I think it would look nice as the low. If I do 2 pockets, I'm going to have this one be the bottom pocket. So this one only needs to be the size that I want the small one, which I may put, let's see, I'm going to do that at 1 3/4 inches. So that's going to be my lowest pocket. And then this one will do bigger. I don't know if I want it that much bigger. Yeah, maybe, what's that? A little bit more than 3 inches. So like 3 1/4. So if I double 1 3/4, I think that's what I did the first one, 1 3/4. So I'd have 1 and 1, 2, 3. That gives me 3 1/2 inches. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make some punches in these pockets. So I want to use my small 1-inch hole punch, and then I'm going to use my 2-inch hole punch, and I'm going to punch holes. I'm going to do 1 notch in just the side here of this one. So I'm just going to find the center, and let's see, it looks like it's 8 inches. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So about right here on that line. So I am kind of eyeballing it, but so there's my 1 notch there. And then for these, I want to do a little bit smaller notch. And when you're trying to line up notches, if you have two pockets or 2 places that you want to put notches at, if you line up their tops and punch them together, that'll make sure they're, you know, in exactly the same place. So I think I'm going to do it on this side because I might be able to tell where the middle is a little bit easier. And of course you could mark this if you want, but I'm not gonna. So make sure they're lined up, and that does not look like half. So what did I do there? Let's see. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it should be 2 1/2. Should be, I'm going to mark it with my nail a little bit so maybe I can see where it is. So when I put it in there, yeah, I don't think I had it lined up at half before. And I'm going to do a nice deep notch in there. Get ready. Woo! They go flying when you punch them together, or at least mine do. Okay. Now I have my notches. And so now the next step, so you can see when I put these together, they're going to be nice and the notches will be aligned just the way I want them there. So the next step I'm going to do is I'm going to distress around all of the pieces that I have cut here. And then I'm going to do a little bit of sewing. So what I'm going to do for the sewing is I'm going to sew the tops of all the pockets with a zigzag. So just where the openings will be, because I want them open, obviously. So I'm going to distress everything and then sew around these 3 edges real quick. So I'm going to speed this up for you and we'll get that done right away. One more thing I forgot to tell you that I wanted to do before I sew. I want to round these corners of my large pocket. So I'm just going to take my corner rounder and I'm going to just round them off a little. I think I'm going to like the way that looks on my paper a little bit better, to have those nice rounded corners there. So if you would like to round yours, round them first before you sew. Okay, I'm going to keep distressing. Okay, you can see I have done my zigzag stitch across all of the pocket openings that I have here. So that is all done. And I've also decided that instead of gluing this down as a support, I'm probably going to try to use this as my spine. So I'm going to actually try to sew my signatures into this piece of cardstock and then glue it in so that I don't have the stitches going through to the outside, which you could totally do if you want to. That's just a decision I just decided to make. So our next step then is I want to do any stitching on this side before we put the fabric on the outside. So to do that, what I want to do is I want to glue in my pockets. Now, I am going to be stitching around them. So what I want to do just to hold them in place for me is I'm going to put a bead of glue around the pockets just as if I wasn't going to sew them. So I'll, you know, around this one, actually, why don't we just go ahead and do it while we're sitting here talking about it. So for this one, I'm just going to use my glitter glue. You could use your Fabri-Tac if you wanted to here. I think I'm going to use my glitter glue if I can get the opening open. All right, let's see. So I'm just going to put my bead of glue around the 3 edges here. Ooh. Let's see if I can do this with some precision. And then we will make sure that's the side that I want up. Let me move this off actually. And then I'm going to just put this down right where I want it. And we'll just let that dry. And then I'm going to do the same thing for this pocket over here. So first I'm going to glue down my back pocket. Same thing, put my glue on the 3 edges. And then do the same for my little pocket at the bottom. And you could also do some more decoration here if you wanted to add some more collage or something to the pockets. I'm not going to right now, but I may do that later. Okay, so now what I want to do, because I want this whole piece stitched in on each side. And so this is the only edge here and here that will show on the outside if I, you know, waited to put the fabric on and then stitch it around. So all I'm going to do right now is I'm going to stitch up this edge that's closest to my spine on both of these. And I'm going to do it so that I don't go over top of my score marks because I don't want to mess up my spine there. So just 1 stitch here and 1 stitch here, holding it where I want it to be. And actually, before I do that, I may just do a little bit, just once again to hold it in place. I'm just going to take my glue stick so that it doesn't move on me and place this right where I want it, so that I have it pretty even. And then I'll do the same with this one so that it doesn't move as I'm stitching that one line. And then once we do that, we can put the fabric or get the fabric ready to put on the outside. And then when we stitch on the outside, all around the outside, it'll finish up the 3 edges that we didn't do yet. So I'm going to go ahead and just do my little zigzag stitch right down here, and I'll be right back. Okay, I got this sewn in. I just did these 2, but I will tell you, I don't know if you can see all these holes, but my sewing machine and I are totally in a fight. You can see what it was trying to do to me here. So it's a good thing I sewed these on first, because what a mess that is. Oh, ay, ay, ay. Okay, let's go ahead and get going with the other side of the cover. Okay, here is the fabric that I've chosen for the outside of my journal. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a piece of fabric that is the same size as this, maybe just, you know, 1/4 of an inch bigger, but not, it might not even be 1/4 of an inch bigger. So I wanted to get as close to that as I can. And I'm going to just go ahead and mark it and cut it. Well, actually, I think probably what I'll do is measure and cut, because I usually don't have any luck when I mark and cut like that. So let me see if I can, what side I can use here. Ooh, actually, I think I could use this side. Now, sometimes if, like, you can see this one has wrinkles in it. So what I'll do is I'm going to put the, put my cover aside, and then I'm just going to spray this with a little bit of water to smooth it out for now. So just a little in the places where it's kind of wrinkled. And it shouldn't take long to dry. And if it does seem like it's taking too long, I'll use my heat gun on it to kind of speed up the drying time, because I really don't want, especially some of those were kind of big wrinkles. If they were smaller, I might not worry about them so much, but some of these are pretty big looking. So I am just going to do that, and it smooths it all out. And I think maybe I will go ahead and heat dry this a little bit so that I can move on to the next step. Okay, I cut my piece of fabric that matches the outside of my cover really, really close. So it was a little closer even than I wanted it to be, but I think it's going to be fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my glue stick first, and then we're going to sew because I really want this to stay in place. So I'm going to kind of go pretty close to the edge, and I'm just going to start with this first side first because I want everything to line up, and then we'll do, you know, the spine and the other side. So I'm going to try and make sure most of my glue is in the middle. I am putting some around the outside. If you're concerned about your sewing machine, you may not want to go that close, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. So now I'm just going to, actually maybe what I'll do is I'll kind of fold this like this. And then I'm going to make sure I have this right where I want it here. And I'm just going to smooth it down. If you want to use like a brayer or something to make sure you have all the wrinkles out, you can do that. I am going to be decorating the cover, but I still want it to be pretty flat. So I'm just going to make sure this side will cover when I have it all smoothed out before I continue, which it looks like I will. So now I'm going to just do the same thing. I'm going to do the spine. And smooth it down. And then I'm going to do the last part here. And same thing, I'm just going to make sure I'm sort of smoothing it from the inside out. And just checking everything. You can see here I have a little bit on the edge, which is good actually, because then I can trim that off. I'll probably actually trim that off before I sew, because I'm going to sew on this side of it, and I want to be sure that I can see, you know, where I need to be sewing. So that looks good. Now I'm just going to take my scissors here, and I'm going to just trim this down so that we're pretty close to the edge. I will probably end up fraying these edges a little bit after I sew, but I want to get this sewn first before I do any of that. And actually it looks like I need to maybe do some over here as well. And I think I'm going to do this with my rotary cutter. I don't know how easy it will be for me to cut that close, so. And when you're using a rotary cutter, make sure you open it up before you start cutting. There we go. Okay, so now I'm just going to So right around the outside of everything using a zigzag stitch, and I'm going to do it a little bit in from the edge so that I can fray those edges a little bit. So I'll be right back. Okay, I have my cover all sewn on, and I really like how it turned out. So now we got to get these signatures going. So let's start on that. So I'm going to pull over the papers that I had put together for my signatures, and I'm gonna, I had those papers that I had been distressing still out to dry, so I need to get them back into the signatures. So I'm just going to put them in however I want them here. And actually that one can probably go here. And this one is gonna go here. And then I kind of did sort of an every other thing here. All right. So here are my two signatures. And now I'm going to do a little bit of decorating on these. Before I do that though, I am going to cut them down. Now that I have them in the order I want them to be in, you can see how they're, you know, when you start folding pages together, they start coming out longer and longer out the outside. And I kind of want these to be close to the same length for each one. Now, yeah, I think we'll probably be okay doing it like this. So I'm just going to put them in the, actually, I don't think I'm going to use my trimmer. I'm just going to use a craft knife here. So I have them all where I want them. I'm going to use my ruler and a craft knife here and try not to have everything fall all over the place. And then I'm just going to cut them down to the length that I want them. So, and in this case, since I have the collage page on the outside, I just want to cut off that border. So I don't have really any other, you know, decorations going on in there too much. So I'm going to just cut them down so that they're all the same length, or yeah, they all stick out the same amount, if that makes sense. And I just keep cutting until all of the papers come off. So I like that. It's a lot neater now on the edges. So I'm going to do the same thing on this one. Okay, a lot of the ephemera I got together off camera because I didn't want this video to have to go into two parts or anything. So I'm just going to kind of talk through what I did. So on the pages of ephemera for the kit, most of them I just cut out. I backed them actually with some more paper that I had splattered with some inks, and I put just some I took one of these and put some ink on there and made some lines on there. And that's mostly all of the ephemera is that kind of thing. So like all of these pieces are all just pieces of ephemera from the kit. That one and this one. And then for this card, I did put a little tab on there just because I thought it was fun. I may do some additional embellishing, adding some ribbons, adding some eyelets, those kinds of things. But I wanted to have them just ready to go right now. So I encourage you to do some fun stuff with your ephemera. Back it however you like. maybe add it to tags, use some of it in collage, all that good stuff. So then the other things that I did, I have this piece that is from another digital kit that I have. And this was a tag that I had made before, but I liked the purple in it. So I just added some little collage snippets. So, and then I also made this belly band with some of the scrapbook paper I had used in the journal, and then just some other little, you know, fussy cut pieces and a stamp and some lace there. So I thought that would be fun inside the journal as well. And then I also just have some extra little snippets that I had made. These are kind of inspired by Artie Mays, the way that she makes her snippets. So it's just, there's some paper on the back, and then I just kind of started putting stuff on top, and then I sewed it all together. So I really like the way those turned out, and I think they'll make good either tuck spots or along the sides of the pages. I haven't completely decided yet, but then I have those that I can use as well. And then I also just created some pockets. So these two pockets, I made this one with flaps. I just wanted to, I don't know, see how they came out. Since this one I'm just going to glue in, it'll be a little bit flatter. This one I wanted to have some body too, so that, you know, it would actually, you could put a couple pieces of ephemera in there and it would, you know, kind of hold that. These two base pieces are from my vintage advertising cuts kit. So I'll link that below if you're interested in those. And then I just took some more of the scrapbook paper and added some more collage. So the tiny pieces that I had printed when I printed 2 pages on one, some of those are the things that I used on here to make some collage. And I used some music paper and then just sewed them together. So I have 4 pockets that I'm going to put in, and my belly band, and possibly a tuck or so that I want to get in my signatures before I sew them in. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to move my ephemera out of the way, and I'm just going to kind of go through. Obviously, we're going to need to do sort of 2 and 2. So let me see, I'll do a big pocket and a little pocket and a big pocket and a little pocket in my signatures. So I just kind of have to decide where I want these to go in my signatures, and I'm just going to use some paper clips to hold them in place until I'm ready to decide how we're going to put them in. Okay, I have my paper clips of where I want my couple pockets and my belly band. I thought that was a perfect spot, and it all kind of matched there on there. So I think that looks good. And now I'm just going to decide how I'm going to put them in. So because I don't have a lot of cardstock in this journal, I'm probably going to just glue most of them down. So that I don't end up tearing things. But the belly band I probably will sew, just because I think that would be a good thing to do with that one. So all of the pockets really have been sewn around already. So I just need to put them in. So let me separate my signatures, and then I'll just go through real quick and put everything in where I want it to be using my Fabri-Tac. And even in my pockets, I did back them with a little bit of art paper so that they were a little sturdier. And let's see if I can do this without getting glue all over the pocket. And I'm just going to hold them in place a little bit. Now I'm just going to go ahead and glue the rest of the ones that I'm going to glue in. And for my belly band, I'm going to wait until this dries a little bit. For my belly band, what I'm going to do is I'm probably just going to sew I'm going to kind of center this on the page, and then I'll just sew it down here and up here to secure it down to the page. Okay, pockets are all in. I have them glued down. I think everything is dry. I have my belly band in, which will make a great spot for a big piece of ephemera like that, possibly even an envelope or both. I love the way that looks. So let's get this sewn in. So I have just a template that I had used for an 8.5 inch spine for a 5-hole pamphlet stitch. I pretty much always do a 5-hole pamphlet stitch. I don't know why. I think it's more secure, but that's just me. If you would like to do a 3-hole pamphlet stitch, you can do that if you want to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my piece of cardstock that I'm going to use, and I'm going to mark the lines where I want my holes to go, and then I'll use my template to actually mark where the holes are going to be. So the first thing I need to do, I'm going to grab my ruler again. Actually, I think I'm going to grab my quilting ruler. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to line this up on my ruler, because it should be a little bit less than an inch. And I'm just going to eyeball the center as best I can, since this is a little less than an inch. I can't like put it at one side, so I'm just going to kind of center this around, and hopefully it'll be pretty close, because I need to do that at both sides. But then what I'm going to do is from the center, I'm just going to come about, I think I'm going to come 1/4 of an inch out on each side, so that my signatures are about 1/2 inch apart from each other. So now I'm just going to turn this around and do the same thing. I'm going to line this up, center my piece as best I can, and then come 1/4 of an inch out. So now when I make my lines here, I'm just going to try to do them kind of light, because I do want to erase them. And I'm just going to do 2 of the lines, since those are where I'm going to put my signature holes. So now I can see them. That's good. I'm going to erase my middle marks there so they aren't showing. And you could probably do this on the back side. Maybe that would have been smarter than what I did, but I'm good with that. So now what I'm going to do, so these should be the same size, and they are a little, my base is a little bit smaller, because remember we cut it a little bit smaller than the 8.5 inches. But once again, I'm just going to center this on my table, and I'm just going to mark where the holes are on my lines that I made. And I'm going to turn it around and do the same thing. I'm just going to center it in the boxes here. And actually I'm going to, turn this over too, just in case they are not the same distance, but they should be. And as I'm doing this, I'm just going to look and see, okay, I can see my dot right here, and my dot's going to be in the same place. So it's not an exact science. You want it to be pretty close, but it's not an exact science. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to erase my marks in between. You don't really need to do this. They probably won't show that much, but since I did this on the front instead of the back, silly me. I'm just gonna get rid of the lines that I had in there and my marks. And try not to erase my dots that I'm making. Okay. Now, put my template away. Well, actually, I'm going to need that because I need that for my signatures. Whoa. So now I'm just going to get out I have a paper piercer that I like to use to make my holes. It keeps the holes small. So I'm going to use this, and I'm going to get out my phone book. That's what I normally use to punch my holes in. And the first thing I'm going to do is just punch the holes in my base piece here so that they are done. And then I will punch the holes in my signatures. Now, usually when I punch the holes in my signatures, I open this up a little bit so that I have a place to punch into. I have sort of a, a center crease there. Before I punch though, I am just going to center any pages the way I want them. So if my collage pages are pretty much smaller than my other pages. So I just want to be sure everything is lined up where I want it before I punch my holes and tie everything in. Or I should say sew everything in, huh? So like this one's pretty low. I'm just going to move that up so it's a little closer to being centered. Okay. And also it's good to just double check and make sure all your pockets are, not upside down or something like that. That would be my luck. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put my template in, and because my plain pages, I didn't cut down at all, they're 8.5 inches. So I can line this right up with the top. And then once again, I'm just going to go through, I'm holding it in place, and I'm going to punch through the entire signature of papers. So I should have my holes on the other side, which I do. And actually, I think what I'm going to do while I'm got it in my hand is I'm just going to put paper clips on real quick. Actually, you know what? I have these little bulldog clips that work pretty good. Let me put those on instead, so that the holes will hopefully be staying in place until I'm ready to sew them in. All right, so that's one signature, and then I will do this one as well. So once again, I'm just going to line things up where I want them, make sure everything's right side up. Okay. And punch away. Maybe this time I'll put these on first to hold everything where I want it. Okay, friends, one more thing I decided to do as I was getting ready to sew things down. This is cardstock, but it's just a little bit flimsy. So I think I'm going to make it a little bit sturdier by gluing this down to just a piece of packaging that I had. So I am going to cut this down to match the size. We'll glue it down and then use the holes, obviously, that we had already punched to punch through. So I'm putting on my cardboard blade because it's crazy how dull these things can get when you're cutting cardboard. So just going to try and make a straight line here. And now we said this was, I'm going to measure this, 1/8 of an inch less than 1 inch. So 7/8 of an inch here. And then this is my straight edge. And then this should be 3/16 less than 8.5. So 8.5. Ooh. It's gonna be right. Let's see. I just made it. I thought I had more space, but nope, that's it. Okay. So let's go ahead and we're going to, let me move this out of the way. I'm going to go ahead and glue this down. And this will give us a little bit sturdier spine when we put it in. This isn't the normal way I do spines. I have seen it done this way. So I don't normally do them this way, but I really just didn't want to put my stitching on the outside of my journal for some reason. I don't know. Don't ask me. Just, you know. That's, I think, a privilege of being a junk journaler, right? We can decide and change our minds at will for how we would like to do things. Okay. So I'm going to let that dry for a little bit so that when I use my pokey tool to punch through these holes, I don't stick it all up. So I'm going to let that dry just for a couple minutes and then poke those holes again. Okay, friends, stitching time. So now this is dry. I poked my holes in my base here, and I picked out my thread. So I use this nylon thread. It seems to work pretty good for me. It's definitely tough. Right off the spool, it's a little slippery though, so I always try to rub some beeswax on it to just give it a little bit of tooth. As you're putting it through things, you can pull it through, and it's a little stickier, which I like as I'm sewing. So what I'm going to do is, you may have seen me do 5-hole pamphlet stitch in the past, so it's the same thing. I'll show you one, and then I will do the other one. So I just try and take about 3 times the height of my signature. So 1, 2, 3, and I always give it a little extra. I don't know, in case something would happen. I should probably know the exact amount by now. I've done this so many times, but I always just give myself a little bit extra. Then if I decide if I want to hang dangles off of it or, you know, something like that, I can do that too. So now what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to run this through my little piece of beeswax to give it a little bit of tooth. And then I am going to thread my needle. And this, so now I just need to make sure I'm sewing in the right holes in the right signature. So this is my second signature, so I need to put that on the right hand line of holes. And wherever you start is where your knot is going to be, or where your ends are going to be. So if you start sewing from the inside of your signature, your ends will be on the inside of your signature. So I want my ends to be on the back of this so I can hide them and kind of tie them in. So I'm just going to start in the middle of the back of this signature. And then I am going to go through the middle of the back of this signature. And I always seem to have this problem where it's not exactly aligned. I don't know what it is. So we're going to pull this through, and we're going to pull through until you have a bunch of inches left over here, 6 inches or so left, so that you don't end up pulling it through. So now our next stitch is going to be going down your signature to the next hole. And I'm going to go right through that and through our base piece. And I don't worry too much about how tight it is, because I go through at the end and tighten it up. Although I do, you know, just try to keep it everything straight, and so I don't have to do a lot of straightening at the end. So now our next stitch is at the bottom, the very bottom hole, and we'll go through the bottom signature there. That didn't go through the hole right at all. There we go. Okay, so now here's where it gets a little tricky. So now that you've gone through that hole, we're going to go back through the second hole that we had gone through. And just try to be sure, because I always seem to have this problem, that you don't thread through your thread that you're using. I have done that in the past, and it sometimes makes things hard to tighten up. I don't think I did it that time, but who knows? I probably did. Okay, so now once we've gone through that, now we're going to go up past the first hole, so past the middle hole, and go into the first hole going up the signature. And this needle is so sharp, so I don't know what kind of needles you use, but just be real careful that you're not poking your finger. Okay, now we're going to go through the top hole and then through the top hole of our base. And now we're going to come back through that second hole of the top, so the middle top hole. And then our last stitch will be back through our first stitch that we started with. And I usually like to try to make sure my ends are on either side of my signature. And I can pull this out for now. And I'm actually going to take my, since I have it all sewn, I'm going to take my binder clips off here. And now's where I do my tightening. So you can see I'm very loose here on the back. So I'm just going to go through. And usually what I like to do is just hold one end and then go through all the signatures, just pulling in the same direction that I had sewn everything. Pull that one up. Okay, and now I also try to make sure that my signature is sewn tight to whatever I'm sewing it to. So the back little piece of card here, make sure there's no gaps there, which there's not. And now we have it pretty tight on the back side. And I'll just check the inside one more time and everything is nice and tight there as well. So now what I do is I just tie it down. So I'm just going to do a nice little double knot, and like I said, I have one end on either side so that it actually secures that long middle stitch. And you could do several ties here if you want to, however many you feel comfortable with. We'll do one more. We'll do three for me. Okay, and then let's we're gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna snip these down since I'm not gonna be putting anything on them. I'm just going to cut them down because I'm going to try and glue them into the back so that they don't show. All right, so now that's one down and we can do our second signature. So I'm just going to do the exact same thing that you just saw and I will speed it up. Okay, I'm going to work on the cover. So what I've done for the cover, I pulled out a piece of collage that I had done. So it's got some weight to it. I'm going to have this sort of be my plate. And then I've done some collage with book pages and napkins, and I put some gesso on there. So that's just going to be my base here. I just kind of cut it up, and you can see I've cut through stitching, and that's okay. And then I've taken some pieces of ephemera and things, just some little, scrappy bits that I have, and I'm going to glue them down. So I just glued on some butterflies and that little basket or box with the eggs in it that I thought was cute. So I was going to glue that on kind of at an angle. And then also I made this scrappy bit with some more of the ephemera from the Easter kit that I had printed at a smaller size. And I was thinking that would look good here. And then the last thing I was going to do, I've made this little brass piece that says 420 for the year. Since this has been such a crazy time and I want to journal, I want to have that sort of marked on here. And then I'm just going to use some string to tie that around the whole thing. And then once I'm done that, I'm actually going to back it with this green burlap, which I thought went really nice with the colors that are in the kit. So I'm just going to go ahead and glue these down. I'm going to use my Fabri-Tac for this. And I do have a lot of ends. I think I'm going to cut a couple of them off. I do like to have, frayed ends here and there, but there's a lot here. So I think that'll be better. All right. And you can see when I had this piece of ephemera down, it just didn't really seem to pop to me. So I just added a little blue backing that I thought might make it stand out a little bit more on the back piece that it's on. Okay, for the metal piece, what I wanted to do was I wanted to take some string here, and I'm going to have to see how big this is going to be. I'm going to make sure it kind of goes around this double. So all I was going to do, and I might need to think about the math of this, because I kind of wanted to have double pieces. So maybe what I need is I'm going to put this one in the right side, because I want a nice long piece to go all the way around here. And then I'm going to cut another small piece and so that we can tie it. And then I'm going to glue it down. I'm just going to glue the metal piece down so that it doesn't slide around. But I wanted to at least get this started here. Okay, and then before I glue anything, I'm just going to make sure I can tie this in a knot, which I think I totally can. So I'm going to go ahead and glue this down. I'm just going to put a nice dab on the back here. Oh, there's a little more of a dab than I wanted. I think I'm going to take a little bit of that off because I'm afraid it's going to totally smush around too much. And then I'm going to put that down right where I want it. And then I'm going to take my ties and just tie them up here. I probably shouldn't do this while it's wet. Okay, well, that bow is not working for me at all. So what I may do is just leave some strings here and tie another bow or something on top, or glue something on top there. I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do yet. Okay, since I was having problems tying the bow that I wanted to tie, I am just going to use a little brad kind of right over the knot, or right near the knot there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my punch here to punch a hole right by where that knot is. So I still tied it together, but I cut those ends down, and I'm going to leave them loose. And then I'm just going to take my pokey tool there and make a little hole so that I can take this brad and hopefully kind of cover up the knot like that. And I probably should have put that down a little. Maybe I can move this up a little so it's a little more in line. There we go. And then I'm just going to leave these kind of long. So, all right, I like the way that looks. Then we're going to go ahead and I'm going to put some burlap on the back. Give it a nice little border here. And let's see. That'll be my cut for this side. And then line it up again. And I was just, for burlap, when I was buying it actually one time, this is how the person at the fabric store was cutting it, you know, for their straight line. They just pulled out one of the threads, and I thought, wow, that's brilliant, because then you can just cut right across and not have to worry about it. Now I'm just going to take out maybe 1 or 2 strands from around there to give it that frayed edge that I always seem to be looking for. And then I'm just going to straighten up this cut a little. Maybe even I'll put that on the bottom. Okay, let me see how this is going to look. For some reason, my burlap always wants to be a little bit skewed. And there's my corner. Okay. I like how that's looking. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue this part down and then let that dry real good while we sew the signatures onto the back there. So almost done. So now all we need to do is glue in our signatures right into the middle there. Before I do that, I am just going to take my cover, which is all dry now, and I'm just going to work on fraying these edges a little bit. I think it'll be easier to do now than after it's got all the signatures and stuff in. So I just want a little bit of fraying around the edges. I'm just pulling the strings a little bit, and then I'll cut any that don't seem to want to come off too well. There we go. I like the look of that much better. Okay. So now I'm going to tuck in these little edges just a little bit. I tried to tie them in the middle so that maybe they'd stay closer to the middle and I don't have to worry about tucking them in. And then I'm just going to get my glue one more time. And I'm going to try to make sure I cover this pretty well, especially the knots and the sewn stitch parts there, since they'll be the ones that will be touching the most. And then make sure we're right side up, because I've done that before. And then I'm just going to put this down as close to the center as I can. Try not to go over the edges. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put this together like this to really let it dry before I do anything else to it. So I'm going to go ahead and let that dry. Okay, friends, it is all dry. My front's all dry. My signatures are all glued in and sewn in. And the only thing that's left now is to do some fill-in with my ephemera. And I think I'm going to do a little bit of decorating on the pages too. Maybe add some lace to the pages or some tabs and, you know, some dangly things I think would be really nice. So let's just do a quick little flip through here of how it is now, and then I'll show you again once I get it all done. So let me just grab something here, piece of ephemera so I can show you. So we made our pocket in the front here, and this is a nice tall pocket that I could put lots of stuff in. And then I wanted lots of room to write, which I think I left myself. And I have a pocket here and lots of stenciling and ink splatters. I love the colors. It's really giving me a bright outlook, especially since we're kind of stuck at home right now. So here we go. And this, I haven't decided what I'm going to do with. I may just leave it here as a fold. I don't know yet. We'll have to see. And then another pocket here. And my second signature. Another pocket here. My nice big belly band, which I love. I think that turned out pretty cool. Another pocket here for some little things. And lots of room to write. And I have a pocket down here and another pocket back here. So lots of space to put things. So friends, I will be back in just a minute to show you how it looks all stuffed and filled with everything. And I hope that you'll go out and make one yourself. Okay, here it is for now. I'm probably going to be doing more as I use it. I like to do that with my journals. I like to add things as I go, you know, as I'm thinking about things or whatever. As I'm journaling, I'll probably add different ephemera or, you know, add different things to the book itself. But here it is, and I love the way it turned out. It's all ready for me to start journaling in. I'm just going to do a quick flip through just to kind of show you some of the different things I've added. So I, you know, put some ephemera in my front pocket there. I added some tabs and some lace to the pages. I put in some collage pieces throughout, and then I just added in all my ephemera. So I'm going to do a separate full flip through because once again, this video is getting pretty long and I don't want it to be too long. So I'm just kind of, you know, that was, I mean, I just added some collage throughout in different places. Some of the snippets I had made, I put in, and then I just made a couple of extra pieces of ephemera or cut out pieces of ephemera. Like this was just from a paper pack that I had that I cut out. So, you know, this will be a good place to write something down or make a list if I wanted to. And then in the back, so I also put in these, a couple of seed pack pockets that I had made a while ago. I just found them in my ephemera box there, and I thought that'd be a good place to add some different things or keep some supplies. So if I wanted to have labels and, you know, different things that I wanted to put throughout my journal, I could put them in there so that they would be safe and secure in here. So there you have it, my friends. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that you make your own Easter journal and do some journaling about this weird time that we're in. Get it out on paper. I'm sure it will be very interesting to go back and look at it later. So I hope you are all safe and well, friends. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks so much, friends. Take care. Bye-bye.